Hey, Coach Scott here. So, I have a whole lot of groups going on right now from my one-on-one coaching to my free membership group to corporate wellness plans and online courses. One of the things I decided I wanted to do was take some of the best questions that I had from each of my groups, put those into one video, and answer those questions for everybody. So, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get into some topics like mitochondrial health, when to eat around our fasted cardio, a lot of different things. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy it. So, our first question tonight comes from Steve. Steve's in our one-on-one coaching group, and he asked, how long do I need to wait to eat after fasted cardio? There's a whole lot of thoughts around this, but essentially, all of the benefits from doing fasted cardio pretty much are over by the time your cardio is finished. The fact you haven't put any food into your system is what makes it fasted cardio. Now, you can get into the weeds a little bit. Typically, for me personally, uh, at the point that you finish your fasted cardio, you are in fat burning mode. So I want to try to keep that going for as long as possible. So right after fasted cardio, my first meal will be protein. So for breakfast, I have protein only. And then I wait until later in the afternoon when I have my lunch, which is around 2 o'clock or so, before I actually put carbs in. Once you put carbs into the system, remember we want to be what's called metabolically adaptive. Your body needs to be able to burn carbs just as well as it burns fat for fuel. And a lot of people get into the problem where they eat carbs and fats together and they get to where they're not adaptive. Your body can't switch back and forth between the two. So, one of the things that I like to do is completely separate out where I have carbs earlier in the day, particularly before and after my workouts when I go to the gym, and then have my fats at dinner. So there's only one time a day that I'm eating fats. And that kind of helps the body, determine you can't be burning carbs for energy when there's no carbs in your system. Same thing with fats. So, although it really doesn't matter, I like to take advantage of that kickstart into fat burning mode by holding off on those carbs for several hours after I do my fasted cardio first thing in the morning. Our next question comes from Tim. Tim is in our free community. Tim says, my biggest nutrition challenge is that I am never hungry enough to meet my goals. What advice do you have? So, there's people that they're just like this. They just don't have much of an appetite. And it can come from several reasons. Tim, I know for a fact, I've known Tim for years. And Tim's deal is just the way he was raised and the way that his body adapted to different meal timings and everything else. He's just not very hungry. And now, after going through an illness, he's trying to put some muscle on and he's just not eating enough to do that. So typically, when I'm coaching someone who's trying to lose fat, one of the big pieces of advice that I give them is under no circumstances do you drink your calories. And in a situation like this where you're having trouble getting enough calories in to support what it is that you're wanting to do with your body, I'm going to flip that on its head. It's okay for you to drink your calories at that point. This is where certain really good bulking shakes can come in. Now, there's just like anything else, there's bad products out there. So you want to make sure you have a really good one. But in this type of situation, lots of times it's easier if you just don't have those hunger signals to drink that. You can get a drink down where you wouldn't be able to sit down and maybe eat a full meal. Now, there's also something else that can be used here. Um, There is a supplement, a small molecule supplement. Lots of times it's listed as a SARM. It's actually not a SARM, but it's called MK677. And what MK677 does, it is a human growth hormone secretagogue. So it will actually increase your body's natural production of human growth hormone. You can also get this out of things like CJC 1295, ipamorelin, tesamorelin, but this isn't a shot like those peptides are. This is actually a pill that you can take, or it can come in liquid form that you put under your tongue. I don't recommend this to a whole lot of people because most of the people that I work with are trying to lose fat and they're trying to get hunger signals down. But in a situation like this, the side effect of MK677 is the fact that it will make you really hungry. It will increase those hunger signals. So it's a good way not only to increase your natural production of human growth hormone, but then to increase those hunger signals at the same time if you're somebody who does not naturally have a high appetite. So that's something that you can look into. And then, as always, with any of these things that we're going to talk about ever, you want to make sure that you're focusing when you do eat on whole foods so that you get all the nutrients and all the vitamins and everything that you need out of those instead of eating processed foods, which are just horrible. They're horrible for you. So, if you focus on whole foods, that can really help. Next question I want to go over comes from Instagram, actually. I'm going to say Ajax. It's spelled kind of funny. You know how Instagram things, the names are kind of weird. But he asked, is red meat dangerous? Now, there is a lot of information out there talking about red meat and the dangers of red meat. It can go anywhere from cholesterol all the way up to, I've actually read some articles claiming that red meat causes cancer. That's a whole lot of fear mongering. And the people saying that have things that agendas that they're wanting to push. So the thing with red meat is it's just like anything else that we eat. There's no such thing as a good food or a bad food. Some foods are better for you than others, but it's not like if you eat this, you've blown everything as far as your nutrition goes. The way I look at red meat is it is completely fine in moderation, just like anything else that you could possibly eat, anything else that you get at a restaurant or you make at home or anything else. You don't want to lock yourself into I can only eat this, but I can't eat this. That's what makes quote unquote diets unsustainable, is that complete elimination of certain food groups. Everything is fine in moderation. Now, with red meat, I will say that you need to pay attention to the cut of red meat that you're eating. It is real easy to get the dietary fats up by eating red meat if you're eating the wrong cuts of red meat. Some of it is extremely fatty. But if you go for the leaner cuts, stuff like New York strip when it comes to steak, or the meat market that me and my wife use, they actually make hamburger meat. It's ground meat, but it's ground steak, and it's 97% fat free. As long as you're focusing on stuff like that to keep the dietary fats down, the amount of creatine, natural creatine that is in red meat is incredible. Very high in protein, and a real good way to get those protein goals up is with red meat. But like I said, everything in moderation. But no, there is nothing inherently dangerous about red meat. Next question we have here comes from Lauren. Lauren is one of our one on one coaching clients, and she asked, we were talking about mitochondria. So this is kind of a follow up. So let me clue you in. We were talking about mitochondrial health. And she said, my question was just that I haven't heard of it or its benefits before, and that I didn't know that the cells could impact, could be impacted with a supplement this way. Obviously, like recovery, I can see how supplements help, but I don't know the cellular level of our bodies can change with help of something like what we do in peptides. Okay. So basically, she's asking, she wants a complete breakdown of mitochondria and why that's important. So if you don't remember your high school biology, mitochondria lots of times are referred to as the powerhouse of the cell. So every cell in your body has a little power plant sitting in it. Now, this power plant, instead of producing electricity, is producing ATP. And ATP is actually what your body runs off of. So there's ways to increase the number of mitochondria and the function of the mitochondria. We'll kind of go through some of those. You can start real low. Things like zone two cardio can increase the number of mitochondria and help with mitochondrial health. Obviously, the cleaner you eat, the more whole foods, the less processed stuff, that puts less junk in your system to kind of gum up the works. And you can take this all the way up to supplements and even peptides that you're taking to help with mitochondrial health. So, some of the things that we know really help with mitochondrial health, things like methylene blue, small molecule supplement called SLUPP332 actually speeds up the mitochondria. So, the faster they're spinning, the more ATP that they are producing. But those are more along the lines of getting the most out of what you've got. Now, when it comes to repairing the mitochondria so that they function better, there's kind of a peptide cycle that you can do that really helps with this. And the first thing that you do is what's called SS31. And SS31 repairs the mitochondria, knocks down the oxidative stress in the system. And then once you come off the cycle of it, you go to what's called MOTC. And then MOTC adds more energy into that mitochondria so that it can produce more ATP. Now, a lot of people get this backwards. They'll take the MOTC first, and then they'll say, oh, it made me feel worse, or I didn't feel nothing at all. The way that I explain this is imagine that you bought an old rundown house, just an old junker of a house. The SS31 is like hiring the plumber and the electrician to go in and fix how everything operates and make sure that you don't end up flooding out or you have an electrical fire. The Mont C is more of the line, more along the lines of your interior decorator. They're going to paint the walls, they're going to put new furniture in, they're going to hang pretty stuff, and then you feel like it's a new house because it looks new. So if you were to buy that old house and you go in and you spend all this money to get the walls painted, to get new furniture put in and everything else, but then you didn't fix the plumbing and it floods and it ruins all that you new paint and furniture in the pictures and everything else you've spent all this money on, and then all that has to be replaced. So kind of look at it the same way. You have to hit the system with SS31 first, repair the foundation, and then come in with the Mont C. Now, this is a topic that I could do a full hour-long video on easily, but that's kind of a 30,000 foot view, and I hope that that helps. And we will kind of, I'm sure, cover more mitochondrial health and questions coming up in later videos. Now, on top of all of the coaching that I do one-on-one and the online course and the free community that I have, I also provide corporate wellness plans. So I've got three really good questions out of some of my corporate wellness plans. I'm not going to say who asked the question the way that I did for the other groups because my deal is with the company. And though these individuals have not signed up with me directly, this is something that I'm providing through their company. So we're just going to cover the questions. The first question we had about our corporate wellness groups is it true that fasting helps you lose fat faster? Okay. Intermittent fasting has tremendous benefits. Um, on top of the things that you hear online and for different people that really tout intermittent fasting, like autophagy and cellular turnover and flushing out dead cells. The main thing with intermittent fasting is so many of us eat all day. We graze, we eat snacks. And it's really good for you to take a complete break from eating, which helps bring the um, blood sugar down. And you're running some time that your blood sugar is not elevated. That's extremely good for us. Now, the problem with that is the most important thing that you can be doing is getting the proper amount of protein to support muscle preservation if you're in a cut, or muscle building if you're just trying to build muscle and get in better shape. And if you're somebody that's having a hard time hitting your protein goals every day, intermittent fasting then shortens that window that you can get the protein in. So the typical rule is you want 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. So let's say you want to weigh 180 pounds. If it's almost impossible for you to get 180 grams of protein in when you're eating 3, 4 meals a day with those good sustained breaks between them, if you cut that feeding window down to 4 to 6 hours because you're intermittent fasting, how much harder is it going to be to get the protein in when you've only got that short window to get it in? So I'm not saying intermittent fasting is bad. It has its benefits. What I'm saying is that when clients come to me and the first thing that they ask is, what diet do I need to be on? I don't like the word diet because diet implies that there's a start date and an end date. You need to set your nutrition up so that it is something that you can follow for the rest of your life. But when it comes to eating keto, fat, intermittent fasting, all the different things that you can do, my answer is always whichever one you can stick to is the one that you need to do. So if you have no problem intermittent fasting and get your protein goals in during that feeding window, then go for it. If it's going to prevent you from being able to get in what you need to preserve and build muscle, then it's not worth it. So that's really person dependent on what they like and what their preferences are. But there's no reason for anybody ever to say this particular nutrition plan is the only thing that works and this is what you should be doing, because everybody is different. The next question I had out of one of my corporate wellness plans is, what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to lose fat? Here's the deal with that one. Whenever we go into a fitness journey, whether it's to burn fat, build muscle, whatever it is that we want to do, motivation is extremely high right at the beginning, and we want to throw everything at the process. Everything. We want to start working out like crazy. We want to make our diet as restrictive as possible. We go into a deficit. We hit the gym. We do a bunch of cardio. The biggest mistake I see people make is, just like I was talking about on the last question, this has to be sustainable. I took the Mind Pump online trainer course and listen to Mind Pump guys all the time. And Sal at Mind Pump has one of my favorite comments when it comes to this topic that I've ever seen. And he says the person that enjoys the journey will always travel farther than the person worried about the destination. The point of this is to fall in love with what you're doing, make it a lifestyle. Focus on the small little habits that you can do every day that stack up and make a big change over time. Because you can have the absolute perfect plan, but if you can't stick to it, what good's it going to do you? Now, if you hit your protein goal every day, you hit your step goal every day, you're getting the workouts in each week that you need that fits you and your goals, and you do it in a way that you can repeat that every single day, you're going to win. Because a lot of people go into a crash diet right out of the box, and They don't realize that if you lose a whole bunch of weight really fast, one, when it's all over and you haven't formed those daily habits, you're going to gain that weight back. In fact, studies say that not only will you gain that weight back, but you'll gain it plus 20% back. It's those small habits where you actually get to where this is just the way that I do things that stack up and allow you to lose weight over time. I mean, preferably when you're losing fat, you want to lose about 1% of your body weight per week. That's it. If you go any faster, you run the risk of losing muscle mass also. And it's, with the GLP-1s being so big right now, there's actually research out there now of people who have lost 60 to 80 pounds taking a GLP-1. And when they've lost the weight after everything's over, their body fat percentage actually went up because they lost so much muscle. And that's another whole video that we can do on the proper way to use GLP-1s and without putting yourself in worse shape. But it's just an example here of losing too much too fast. And then sticking with the GLP-1 scenario, you're taking the GLP-1 and you don't put those daily habits that you need in place. What happens when you stop taking the GLP-1? That's a tool that can be used, but it's not the only tool that can be used. Sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you need a hammer. But the biggest mistakes I see people make is going way too hard, way too fast, and not putting those daily habits in place so that this process is sustainable. The final question that I got out of my corporate wellness plans is what measurement should I track besides weight? Now I'm going to get up on my soapbox. The bathroom scale is the absolute worst thing that you can use to try to determine whether your program is a success or not. It just is. I started off of my journey. I'll see if I can slice a picture or put a picture in here while we're talking about this. But I started my journey at 278 pounds. The shadow of my hind end would weigh 50 pounds. And you don't want to go just by the scale because the truth is, I would be absolutely fine waking up tomorrow weighing 278 pounds again if I could do it at 12% body fat. Somebody that weighs, say, 140 pounds, 140-pound female, and I'll put a picture in here too to show you the difference. 140-pound woman at 40% body fat compared to a 140-pound woman at 25% body fat, it's two completely different body types. One you would look at and go, whew, she's overweight. The other you would look at and say, okay, that woman's in shape. The best way to measure your progress physically, besides the scale, is to do body measurements. For men, you want to do a measurement right at the belly button once a week and then track how much smaller your waist is getting. For women, you want to check your waist right at the belly button and then you want to check at the widest part of your hips. If you want to go by a number, that is the best thing to do. And what you're looking for there is the Adonis ratio. For instance, for men, this term comes from the Greek statues. The Greek statues to this day is still considered, like the statue of David, this type of stuff, the perfect male body. Well, the one thing that they all have in common is the waist is exactly half of the height. Who cares how much you weigh if everything is put out there where dimensionally, ratio wise, you're built well? I mean, one of the worst things that you can go by is BMI, body mass index. And a lot of doctors still go by this. I lost from 278 down to right now, I'm sitting around 190. I got down to 178 and then put some muscle back on because I didn't like being that skinny. But if you check my BMI right now, I'm borderline in between overweight and obese. And my body fat's up right now compared to where it usually sits. I'm up around between 14, 15%, and I like to be down around 12 or so. But long story, the last 6 weeks and the way things have been going for me. But anyway, I'm working back toward it. There's no way at 14% body fat, I'm obese. It's just not. So that scale will lie to you. It does a real good job of telling you how much food you have in your system, how many carbs you ate the day before, whether or not you're starting your menstrual cycle, how much fluid you're retaining. There's all these little details that you're missing if you go strictly by the scale. Now, if you want to go by something that's even better than looking at numbers, that is, are you sleeping better? How clear is your head? Is the brain fog gone away? Are you getting stronger in the gym? Do you have more energy? Do you feel better? If you're working through your program and you can say yes to all of those questions, it's working. There's no way that all of that could improve and you're not making progress. So I encourage everybody, a lot of the people that I coach one on one, I'll actually ban them from getting on the scale. I don't want you on the scale. I don't want it messing with your head. So there's a lot of ways that you can judge how you're doing and what kind of progress you're making without ever stepping on a bathroom scale. So don't fall for just looking at that number. So that is the questions that we had submitted this week that I thought everybody could get some benefit out of. If you have a question that you would like answered, feel free to drop it down in the comments and I'll cover it next week on our Q&A video. Or if you'd like to jump into one of these groups, the links will be in the description. If you just kind of want to find out what it's like, I highly encourage you to join Tier 1 Health and Performance. That is a completely free group where you get information and you can learn which direction you need to go in these other groups if you want more support. But if you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe. It'll really help us out. We're still trying to kind of get out there on social media and on YouTube. So any support you would give us be greatly appreciated. But until next week, when we have more good questions from clients, keep digging.